The day Jason Carter's childhood sweetheart passed away was our 50th wedding anniversary. Jason didn't say a single word the entire day. But once we got home, he locked himself in the bedroom and tried to take his own life by swallowing pills. I went absolutely frantic trying to save him. When he finally regained consciousness, he slapped me hard across the face. "Claire," he said, cold and furious, "this is all your fault. I want a divorce." Our son added, "Mom, you never should have married Dad. You ruined his whole life." I was forced to divorce him. Then I watched as Jason, dressed in his finest, became the perfect gentleman by Julia Blake's side. Only then did I truly understand. Jason and his childhood sweetheart had made a 10-year promise when they were young. If they were both still unmarried, they would be together. Now, with my eyes wide open and my heart finally clear, I didn't want him anymore. "I'm willing to take the assignment at the South City branch office," I told the director. The old wooden door creaked as I pulled it open. Director Mason, who was reading a newspaper, looked up at me. "What made you change your mind so suddenly? I thought you were planning to go to college in North City with your fiancé." I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the emotional shock and joy that came with being reborn. "Director, I thought about it all night. You were right. Women can shoulder half the sky in this era. I want to contribute to our nation's growth in my own way." "Well, Claire, it's rare to see someone with such awareness," he said, clearly pleased. "But what about your fiancé? Have you talked it over? Will he agree to this?" Even as he smiled, the director still thought of my situation. In my previous life, I had turned down this very assignment to South City. I had told Jason Carter about it, but when he learned I planned to accompany him to North City, he tried to stop me with words like, "Claire, there's no need to give up your job for me." Or, "You're sensitive to the cold. I'm afraid you won't get used to the dry, freezing weather in North City." I thought he was being considerate. Touched, I insisted on going anyway. "Just let me go with you. As long as we're together, I'm not afraid of anything." Now that I look back, wasn't that just his way of rejecting me? I was just too naive to understand. I took another deep breath and calmly said, "Director, that engagement between me and him was just something our elders came up with for fun. It doesn't count. Besides, there's someone he really loves. She's already in North City waiting for him." "I see," Director Mason nodded, finally understanding. "All right, then go home and get ready. You'll head out on the 30th of this month." The 30th just so happened to be the day Jason was leaving for North City to start college. That gave me 3 days. After leaving the factory, I borrowed a bicycle from the security department and made it to the train station just before closing. I bought a ticket to South City for the 30th. The moment I held the ticket in my hand, the weight pressing on my heart finally eased. In this life, Jason, you head north, I'll go south. From now on, our paths will never cross again. By the time I got home, it was already dark. "It's so late. Why isn't Claire back yet?" Jason's mother said. "Jason, go check the end of the alley." Just as I was pushing the courtyard gate open halfway, I heard her voice again, exactly like in my past life, calling him to go look for me. Through the narrow opening in the door, I saw Jason sitting on the couch in the living room, holding a letter. He was staring at it in a daze, completely ignoring what his mother had said. When she didn't hear a reply, she called his name again. That's when Jason finally snapped out of it. "Oh," he responded vaguely. As he tried to hurriedly tuck the letter back into the envelope, I stepped inside. Startled by my sudden appearance, he flinched. His hand shook and the letter slipped to the floor. Worried I might see what it said, he quickly bent down to pick it up. But I had already seen the signature. Julia Blake. In my past life, I had never found that letter. So I didn't know that before Jason came here with his parents. He had a childhood sweetheart back in his hometown. It wasn't until I followed him to North City that I finally learned about Julia Blake. Even after 50 years of marriage, I didn't know that Jason and Julia had made a promise. If they were still single after 10 years, they would marry. Because of that promise, Julia never married anyone else her entire life. And because Jason broke it, he hated me for a lifetime. After forcing me to divorce him, he devoted himself fully to Julia Blake, acting the perfect partner. Even the son I had raised with love turned against me. "Mom," he said, "you should never have married Dad. You completely ruined his life." "Look at my dad now," our son had said. "He spends every day sitting by a gravestone, living in misery. It's all your fault." His words from my previous life still echoed painfully in my ears. I closed my eyes, barely able to swallow the grief and resentment swelling in my chest. But thankfully, heaven gave me a second chance. I wouldn't marry Jason Carter in this life, and naturally, I wouldn't give birth to that ungrateful, heartless son either. I took a deep breath and opened my eyes, only to meet Jason's gaze directly. He looked just as he did in his youth. Strong features, broad shoulders, long legs, wearing a white shirt faded from too many washes. For a moment, I was caught off guard. But Jason quickly regained his usual calm. "You're back," he said plainly. But he was only in his early 20s now, far too young to be able to fully conceal his emotions. When he saw my eyes drift toward the letter in his hands, his expression visibly tensed. He even instinctively tried to hide the letter behind his back. Clearly, he was afraid I might question him about it, who wrote it, what it said. Because over the years I had always hovered around him, curious about everything he did. From what he had for breakfast to who he chatted with at school. I wouldn't let anything go without getting an answer. But in those few seconds of eye contact, just as Jason's nervousness peaked, I simply gave a quiet, and looked away. I didn't ask a thing. Relieved, he let out a quiet breath. Then, almost immediately, he frowned slightly, and his eyes flickered with confusion. I imagined he was surprised that I didn't press him about the letter. What he didn't know was, not just today, but for the rest of our lives, I wouldn't ask about his business ever again. "Oh, the factory gave me a last-minute task. That's why I got home late," I told his mother when she asked why I came back so late. I paused for a second, then decided not to mention the real reason. I had gone to the train station to buy a ticket. In my past life, I had done the exact same thing. Bought the ticket behind Jason's back. When he found out, he was furious, accusing me of making decisions without him, scolding me for not being open. I was foolish then. I really thought I had done something wrong. But now I realize what really happened. My actions caught Jason completely off guard. Though, in this life, the ticket was for South City, not North, I still chose to keep quiet. No need to stir up more trouble. After hearing my explanation, Jason quietly continued eating. Just as I'd hoped, he didn't fly into a rage like he had before. No table flipping this time. "These holidays, they don't even give out eggs at the factory," Jason's mom grumbled as she added a piece of fatty pork to my bowl. "And they still work my Claire to the bone. She's lost weight." Jason's dad suddenly chimed in. "Claire, I think you should just quit your job at the factory, pack up in a few days, and go with Jason to North City." As soon as the words left his mouth, Jason's chopsticks froze midair. He looked up at me immediately, brows furrowed, a reflexive reaction. "No," he said flatly. I wasn't surprised, but Jason's father slammed his chopsticks down. "What did you say?" Jason put down his bowl and chopsticks too, and looked at his father. "Claire has a good job. Why should she quit? And besides, I'm going to study, not on vacation. What would she even do there?" Clearly, Jason's explanation wasn't enough to convince his father. Mr. Carter frowned deeply. "What do you mean? What would she do there?" "She'd give our family an heir, of course. Your mother and I are waiting for grandkids." "Yes, Jason," his mom added. "You and Claire have been engaged for 3 years already. It's about time, don't you think?" Jason's whole body stiffened with resistance. "I've said this before. I'll marry Claire after I finish college and come back." Claire's dad snorted. "Claire is the daughter-in-law we've already chosen and accepted. Whether you marry her sooner or later doesn't matter much. You might as well register the marriage before you leave." "I'm not going," Jason replied coldly, his face turning hard. Seeing Jason getting more and more stubborn, my father's face darkened. "What's that supposed to mean?" Jason stayed silent. "Fine, you brat," my father snapped. "Now that you're a college student, you think you're something, huh? Too good for Claire?" He slammed his hand on the table. "Let me tell you something. If I'm still alive today and able to sit here and talk to you, it's thanks to Claire's father. You will marry her, whether you want to or not." Yes, this engagement between me and Jason Carter came at the cost of my father's life. As long as I didn't call it off, Jason had no right to break it off on his own. But as for the marriage certificate, I wasn't ready to sign it just yet. Amid the tense, deadlocked atmosphere, I finally spoke. Everyone turned to look at me in surprise, including Jason, who stared at me with disbelief. In his mind, I was someone who would never refuse. And it's true. In my past life, how could I have said no to marrying Jason Carter? He was the boy I had loved with all my heart throughout my youth. But it was precisely because I never said no that I spent the rest of my life drowning in regret. This time, I wouldn't let myself make the same mistake. I used Director Mason's plan to promote me as group leader as a reason to reject registering the marriage, saying I didn't want to go north and suffer in the cold. As a result, my father and mother stopped pressuring Jason to bring me along, and Jason even started treating me a little better. Once, he got hold of a bar of imported chocolate and ran home right away to give it to me. At the time, I was packing my bags in my room. Jason pushed the door open. "Claire." I was startled and accidentally knocked over the train ticket I had set aside. He saw it instantly. "A train ticket? You bought a train ticket behind my back?" I picked it up quickly, but he had already seen it, though not clearly enough to read the destination. Naturally, he assumed I had secretly bought a ticket to North City. His face darkened immediately. His eyes turned sharp and cold. "Didn't you say you weren't going with me to North City? Then why did you buy this ticket without telling me?" I realized I couldn't hide it anymore, and was about to explain everything. But before I could even open my mouth, Jason grabbed my wrist. "Come with me to the station. We're returning that ticket." "I'm not returning it." I tried to pull away, but he was too strong and dragged me out into the courtyard within seconds. "Claire, I already told you, North City isn't a good place for you. Why won't you listen? Why do you insist on coming with me?" he shouted, not even giving me a chance to respond. "I'm going there to study, not to have fun. Can't you just stay here and wait for me like a normal person?" In my previous life, I did wait like a normal person, for a whole lifetime. I watched Jason shower Julia Blake with rice, flour, and everything else we barely had. I bore our child under the threat of a difficult labor, only for him to call Julia the godmother. I wasn't going to repeat that. I yanked my hand free and without thinking, slapped Jason across the face. He let go of me, staring in disbelief. I looked back at him coldly. "Jason, listen carefully. Yes, I bought a ticket, but not to follow you to North City." "You think I still believe you?" he snapped, stunned only for a moment before glaring at me again. "I don't care. You will return that ticket. Today." But we never made it to the ticket window. His parents came home. When they heard from Jason that I had bought a ticket to North City, they didn't scold me for going back on my word. Instead, they were thrilled. That night, they even boiled tea eggs for us to take on the road. The next day, the day of departure arrived. Jason's parents insisted on seeing us off, and Jason never got a chance to talk to me privately until we entered the station. Once his parents were gone, he finally spoke. His tone was slightly softer. "I guess it's fine if you just want to take a look," he said. "Once we get there, I'll buy you a ticket back in a couple days." "I don't need one," I answered flatly. Jason frowned. "Claire? I'm going there to study," he said. "If my classmates see you tagging along, they'll laugh at me." But I wasn't even listening anymore. My eyes were on the board showing when my train would arrive. Seeing me silent, Jason thought I still hadn't given up on the idea of staying in North City permanently. Jason took a deep breath. "I know what you're worried about," he said. "So let me promise you here and now, I'll definitely marry you in the future. I won't let you down." Then, pointing toward a nearby vendor, he added, "They're selling corn over there. I'm gonna grab one." Just as the train bound for South City pulled into the station, I quickly cut him off. "All right, go ahead," I said. "But hurry back. If the train arrives and you're not here, I won't wait for you." Jason nodded, handed me 30 cents, and said, "Here, in case you want something too." I looked at him briefly, then took the coins without hesitation and turned toward the crowd. But as soon as I took the first step, a sudden thought stopped me. In both this life and the last, I had never properly said goodbye to Jason Carter. I paused, then turned and called out to him through the crowd. "Jason, goodbye. From now on, let's never meet again." He heard me and looked in my direction. I think he said something back, but I was already walking away, disappearing into the crowd. I couldn't hear him anymore. It didn't matter. I handed my ticket to the conductor and stepped onto the train to South City without looking back. "The train to North City is departing. All remaining passengers, please board now," the platform staff shouted. Only when the conductor called for the third time did Jason finally move his legs. At first, he had been worried. Claire wouldn't make it to her train in time. But then a new thought crossed his mind. What if she missed her train? Wouldn't that be perfect? That way, he could go to North City alone, and finally be with Julia Blake without complications. With that comforting thought, Jason stopped hesitating. He turned, handed his ticket to the conductor, and boarded. He took a window seat. Outside, the platform was crowded with people seeing off loved ones. So many faces, yet not one of them belonged to Claire. At first, he felt happy that she hadn't followed him. But as the train pulled away from the platform and Claire's figure never appeared, a strange, unexplainable feeling began to grow in his chest. He had a sudden, uneasy feeling, like this might be the last time he ever saw Claire. But he quickly brushed it off. After all, he believed he knew her well. Claire loved him. She would never leave him. She would wait at home, 4 years, 10 years, even a lifetime, and never complain. Convinced of this, Jason's confidence quickly returned. After 3 days and 2 nights of hard seating, I finally arrived in South City. It wasn't filled with towering buildings or bustling traffic like it would be in the future. But thanks to the wave of reforms, the streets were already full of life. People buzzed around, busy with purpose. I took a deep breath. For the first time in either life, I felt something I never had before: freedom. And for the first time, a powerful sense of purpose surged within me. This time, I'm living for myself. With that drive, I threw myself into the work at the new development site. As time flew by, I built a career, made friends, and slowly, the name Jason Carter faded from my mind. Until 3 months later, Captain Lin from security suddenly came knocking on my dorm room door in a flurry. I had just finished washing my hair and was drying it with a towel. "Captain Lin, is something wrong?" I asked. He said, "Engineer Claire, someone's here to see you." Who? A young man named Jason Carter. When I saw that familiar face again, I felt a little dazed, but deep inside, I was strangely calm. "What are you doing here?" I asked, genuinely curious. I wasn't surprised that Jason had found this place. All he had to do was ask around at the cotton factory I used to work at, and they'd easily give him my new address. What puzzled me was why he had come. Shouldn't he be in North City, by Julia Blake's side, the girl he couldn't stop thinking about? Jason looked at me, his tone curt. "Come back with me." With that, he turned and walked out. But after a few steps, he realized I hadn't followed. He turned back and looked at me again. "Let's go, Claire." "I'm not going back with you," I replied calmly. When he saw I wasn't budging, that I remained rooted to the spot, it seemed like the frustration Jason had been bottling up for days finally exploded. He said, "You're not coming back with me? Claire, even if you're upset, there's a limit to how far you can take it." Faced with his baseless accusation, my expression immediately darkened. "What exactly do you think I'm upset about?" I shot back. Jason let out a cold laugh, like he found my question ridiculous. "You came all the way here just to make me chase after you. Isn't that what this is about?" Meeting his confident gaze, I pressed my lips together. If I still loved Jason Carter, maybe I would have done something like this in the past, run away just to get his attention. But I didn't love him anymore, and I wasn't about to hurt myself just to make him notice me. "You're overthinking it," I said flatly. To Jason, that just sounded like stubborn pride. Still, under some invisible pressure, he decided to go along with it in a half-hearted way. All right, I'm overthinking it. But I'm here now, aren't I? So let's go back. You got what you wanted. We don't want to miss the train." He glanced at his watch. My eyes followed. That watch. I bought it. I'd spent 3 months' wages to have someone bring it all the way from Shanghai just to celebrate him getting into college. I remembered the day I gave it to him. Jason had been so happy, so grateful. He told me he'd treasure that watch the same way he'd treasure me, like keeping me close to him at all times. Back then, I believed every word. I thought I'd stay by his side forever, just like that Shanghai watch. But in reality, it wasn't long before the watch on Jason's wrist was replaced with a string of prayer beads Julia Blake had given him. I pushed aside the emotions that bubbled up, and finally said something I'd been holding back for a long time. "Jason, let's call off the engagement." Jason looked up at me like he hadn't heard me clearly. "What did you say?" My dad was the team leader of our village. It didn't matter who fell into the river, he would have tried to save them. Your parents are good people, but that doesn't mean you owe me your entire life. So let's end the engagement. And truthfully, I don't want to marry you anymore. Jason's gaze changed. The fire in his eyes was gone, replaced with shock and disbelief. His lips moved slightly, like he was about to say something. But I beat him to it. "I'm not being dramatic, I mean it." Then I added, Also, can I have the watch back? I pointed at the Shanghai watch on his wrist. In the end, Jason gave it back to me. He came alone, and he left alone. I held the watch, still warm from his skin, and walked straight into a pawn shop without a second thought. I traded it for cash. From that day forward, Jason Carter never came looking for me again. I didn't think about him either, nor did I ever wonder how life was going between him and Julia Blake. Later, after I was named Outstanding Employee 3 times in a row at the factory, I was offered a 5-year exchange program abroad. I had no attachments left in the country, so when the director brought it up, I agreed without hesitation. 5 years passed quickly. When I returned, I didn't just bring back the latest technical knowledge. I spoke fluent English and had worked my way up from a technician to deputy factory director. At a banquet one evening, I arrived wearing a black and gold gown. The moment I stepped through the door, I saw Jason Carter again, but he wasn't an invited guest. He was wearing a waiter's uniform and carrying a tray, clearly working part-time at the event. Claire. His voice trembled slightly as he called my name. I stopped in my tracks. My eyes rested on his face for a few seconds before I finally recognized him. Jason Carter. Seeing my hesitation, a flicker of sadness crossed Jason's face. "It's me," he said, licking his dry lips. "All these years." Before he could finish, Mr. Zhang from the Southwest region suddenly approached me. "Director Claire," he greeted enthusiastically. "What a surprise. What are you doing here?" My gaze shifted immediately from Jason to Mr. Zhang. Calmly, I said, "I just arrived." "Perfect timing," he smiled. "Director Yang, Director Li, and I." Jason, who had been interrupted, stood silently to the side. His eyes burned into me. Mr. Zhang seemed to sense it too. Mr. Zhang shot a quick glance at Jason and asked curiously, "Do you know each other?" I smiled faintly and didn't answer the question. "Let's go inside. We can talk more there." The banquet lasted until midnight. I had been busy the whole time exchanging information with guests about market conditions, so much so that I completely forgot Jason had even been at the event. What I didn't expect was that he had been waiting for me the whole time. As soon as I walked out, he rushed up to me. He had changed out of his waiter's uniform and was now wearing a plain white shirt and jeans. He looked more mature than before, but compared to the professional men I was used to seeing in suits and ties, he still seemed a bit juvenile. "Were you waiting for me?" I asked uncertainly. "Yes, I was," Jason replied quickly. Hearing his answer didn't make me feel moved or excited. Instead, I felt annoyed, tired even. I simply didn't have the energy to deal with him anymore. Still, out of respect for his parents, I forced a polite smile. "I see." Since I stepped outside, Jason hadn't taken his eyes off me. But after hearing the indifference in my voice, a flicker of pain passed through his expression. He hid it well, though, and gave a small laugh. "It's pretty late," he said. "I was worried it might be hard for you to get home, so you waited here to give me a ride home." I finished his sentence for him. Jason pressed his lips together and nodded. Seeing him like this, I couldn't help but scoff silently. In my past life, in the 3rd year of our marriage, I got pregnant, but it happened during the factory's busiest season. Even with a big belly, I kept working late into the night. I was always understanding of Jason's job, and I was never the delicate type, so I never asked him for much. But that morning, something felt off. The sky looked wrong. I had a bad feeling there would be heavy rain that night. So I said to him before he left, "Could you pick me up tonight? I think it might rain. I'll be heavily pregnant by then. It'll be hard for me to get home." Jason was cleaning his bicycle and didn't even look up. "What's the problem? It's not like you started showing overnight. You've been coming home every day just fine. Why not today? Besides," he added, "I've got a meeting tonight. I can't pick you up." Then he wheeled his bike away. That night, just as I'd expected, a storm rolled in. Heavy rain poured down and I got stuck at the factory. Jason never showed up. It wasn't until the head of security did a final check that they found me still inside. He gave me a ride home. As for Jason, he'd said he had a meeting. In reality, he had gone to the movies with Julia Blake. When I caught him in the lie, he looked guilty for a moment but quickly explained, "I did have a meeting. It just got canceled last minute. I didn't expect the rain to be that bad. Next time, I'll come get you." But now, as I stood there with Jason again, a car pulled up in front of me. My driver got out and opened the door. His arrival made it easy for me to reject Jason and reminded Jason clearly that I was no longer the woman who needed rides from him. I stepped into the car naturally. After the door closed, I saw Jason still frozen where he stood, as if he hadn't fully processed what just happened. I lowered the window and asked courteously, "Do you need a ride?" Jason looked up at me. In my memory, he had always been confident, proud, even arrogant. But now, the way he looked at me carried something else: inferiority, distance. He took a step back and said quietly, "No, thank you." I had only asked out of politeness, so I didn't insist. "All right." Then I raised the window, closed my eyes, and let the barrier shut him out. Out of sight, out of mind. I thought running into Jason that night had been a coincidence. I assumed I wouldn't see him again anytime soon. But the very next day, he appeared in front of me again, this time as an intern assistant. I immediately called HR to ask about it. They told me he had come through the official process, but if I didn't want him around, I could have him removed. To me now, Jason Carter was just a stranger. I didn't like him, nor did I dislike him. But to avoid unnecessary trouble and misunderstanding, I still had HR arrange for him to leave. But Jason couldn't accept it. He stormed straight into my office and locked the door behind him. "Claire, do you really hate me that much?" he demanded the moment he walked in. I answered honestly, "I don't hate you." "Then why are you making me leave?" he asked, frustrated. "I don't want a male assistant," I said calmly. It was the truth. Jason clenched his teeth. He looked like he was at his breaking point. Eventually, he sighed and said in a helpless, compromising tone, "Claire, I really know I messed up. Can you stop being mad at me?" "What are you talking about, Jason?" I asked, confused. Jason took a deep breath. His tightly clenched fists finally relaxed. "Claire," he said, "do you know, I've actually been looking for you all these years." I gave him a puzzled look. "I admit, when we separated in South City, I didn't believe you'd actually leave me. I thought when you called off the engagement, it was just because you were upset. I figured you'd calm down in a few days, so I didn't take it seriously. But I guess I was wrong. Later, I went back to South City to find you, but they told me you'd gone abroad." He looked at me, his voice softer now. "Claire, it's not that I didn't like you. I just hated hearing my dad say over and over that we owed your family. I hated being treated like a tool for paying off a debt." It was like those words had been bottled up inside him for years. Now that they were out, he looked visibly relieved, like a weight had been lifted. His eyes softened as he looked at me again. "I kept dreaming about you," he continued, "about us running through the fields together in the village. Claire, I really do like you." But before he could go further, I cut him off, emotionless. "What about Julia Blake?" Jason froze when he heard her name. His pupils contracted. "Do you know about her?" He searched his memory, trying to figure out how. Then, testing the waters, he said, "You read my letters?" Because he had never mentioned Julia Blake to me before. The only way I could have known was from the letters she'd written him years ago. I didn't respond. I didn't want to explain anything from the past. Seeing my silence, Jason took it as confirmation. In his mind, he had finally found the reason behind my sudden departure. "So you left me because of Julia?" he asked. "But there was nothing between us. I've only ever thought of her as a sister." "You two were never together?" I asked, genuinely surprised. Jason shook his head. "No." And suddenly, I couldn't figure him out anymore. In our past life, he had been obsessed with Julia for a lifetime. He resented me for standing in the way. He hated me so much, and yet now, without me, they never ended up together. "But didn't you two have some kind of 10-year promise?" I asked. "If you were both still single, you'd be together?" "That was just childish nonsense," he said quickly. "We were kids. We didn't know what we were saying." I stayed quiet. Jason immediately tried to reassure me. "Claire, I swear I've only ever seen Julia as a sister. The only one I've ever truly cared about is you." As he repeated those words over and over that he liked me, I couldn't help but frown. There was a trace of disgust in my heart. I just wanted him to leave as soon as possible. So I spoke directly. "Yes, part of the reason I left was because of Julia. But the bigger reason was because I didn't love you anymore, so there's no need for you to keep clinging to me." I walked over and unlocked the office door. "You can go now." "I don't believe you," Jason said. I stared at him coldly, my expression saying clearly, "Believe what you want." "If you didn't care," he said, "then why did you keep sending money to my parents all these years?" "Claire, I really know I was wrong. I'll change, I swear I'll change." But I remained unmoved. Jason grew desperate. "If you don't believe me, I'll kneel down right now to prove it to you." Before his knees could hit the ground, 2 security guards came in and grabbed him by both arms, dragging him out. But even then, Jason didn't give up. He waited outside the company for me. He waited from morning until night. If he didn't see me in a month, he would wait a month. No matter how long it took, he said he would keep waiting. Until I acknowledged his sincerity. He was so stubborn that even calling the police didn't help, so I had my assistant contact Julia Blake immediately. Jason kept insisting there was nothing between him and Julia. But what he didn't know was that Julia was already 6 months pregnant with his child, and when she showed up in front of him with her round belly, he was stunned. "Why are you here?" he blurted out. Julia looked at the man who had been avoiding her for months and sneered. "What? I'm not allowed to come?" Jason didn't want to argue. His tone turned cold. "Leave. Don't get in my way. You really think that if I leave, Claire will come out to see you?" Julia saw right through him. Jason frowned. "I'll just be honest with you," she said. "Claire's the one who called me. She said you're going to be a father. She even gave me a red envelope for your son." Watching Julia smugly stroke her belly, Jason felt a fresh wave of disgust rise in his chest. What the hell had he been thinking back when he actually thought Julia was gentle and graceful? "My son?" Jason let out a bitter laugh. Who knows whose kid that even is? Julia could tolerate Jason's coldness toward her, but when he insulted the baby in her belly, she snapped. "Jason, how many times do I have to tell you? This baby is yours. He's not some bastard." "I saw it with my own eyes," Jason said. "You really think you can keep lying to me?" "I'm not stupid, Julia. I won't let you keep fooling me again and again." When he brought up the scene a few months ago, catching her kissing another man, Julia flinched with guilt, but she quickly straightened up, defiant. "He's just an old friend from my hometown. That's all. There's nothing between us. The baby is yours, whether you like it or not. And if you won't acknowledge him, I'll go talk to your parents and ask them if they want to recognize their grandchild." "Don't you dare," Jason snapped. Julia laughed coldly. "Why wouldn't I? Look at me. I've got nothing left to lose." Seeing that she wasn't intimidated, Jason took a deep breath and said, "Even if the child is mine, you know very well how it happened. If you hadn't gotten me drunk and pretended to be Claire, do you really think I'd have slept with you? Either way, I'm not marrying you." "Oh, you're not marrying me?" Julia scoffed. "Then who are you going to marry, Claire?" Jason said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Julia laughed again, harshly. "Wow, Jason, you're really something. When I wrote you those letters, when you wrote back to me, you sure didn't act like someone who had a fiancé. And now you want to play the noble lover? Think acting like some tragic romantic hero will make Claire change her mind? Get real. Claire has money. She has status. She has options. You think she's going to pick you now?" Every word hit its mark. Jason winced. Deep down, he knew Julia was right. He wasn't good enough for Claire anymore. Still, all he could do was shout at Julia in frustration, "Shut up!" But Julia wasn't scared of his temper. "Jason, I don't care whether you want to marry me or not. This marriage is happening. Today's a good day, and the Civil Affairs office is still open. Let's go register the marriage." She reached out to grab his arm. Jason instinctively pulled away. She tried again. He pulled back again. After several attempts, Julia finally realized he truly didn't want to marry her. "Fine," she snapped. "Then I'll go talk to your parents myself." And she wasn't bluffing this time. With the baby coming soon, she couldn't go on alone any longer. "Julia, stop right there," Jason shouted, starting to panic. He looked toward the main gate. Claire still wasn't there. By the time he turned back around, Julia had already crossed the street. After a few seconds of hesitation, Jason ran after her. He needed to stop her. Somehow. But Jason had only taken 2 or 3 steps after her when a car driving the wrong way suddenly sped out of nowhere and hit him head-on. He was thrown more than 10 feet through the air and lost consciousness instantly. Julia, who witnessed the entire scene, fainted on the spot from shock. Passers-by quickly called the police, and both of them were rushed to the hospital. Jason was lucky. He survived the accident. But the crash left him paralyzed from the chest down. For the rest of his life, he'd be confined to a bed. When Julia woke up and saw what had become of Jason, she didn't bring up marriage again. Instead, the first thing out of her mouth was a demand. She wanted 1 million yuan for the child she was carrying. With Jason in this condition, her unborn baby had become the only hope left for the Carter family. After a paternity test confirmed the child was indeed Jason's, he scrambled to raise the money. He begged, borrowed, and pulled every string he could to gather the full amount. But the moment Julia got the money, the first thing she did was terminate the pregnancy. Then she took the cash and left the country. There's no cruelty sharper than the kind that goes for the heart. Hearing my assistant recount all of this to me, I couldn't help but sigh a little. Jason's life in this lifetime was a far cry from the shining, glorious one he had in our previous life. But oddly enough, I felt a sliver of admiration for Julia Blake. She always knew exactly what she wanted, and whether in the past or this life, she lived quite well for it. Still, of all the people affected by what happened, it was Jason's parents who suffered the most. I had originally planned to visit them, but on the phone, Mr. Carter repeatedly insisted I not come. He said he didn't have the face to see me. I didn't press the issue. I just asked my assistant to send them some money, hoping it would help them live a little more comfortably. As for me, my life kept moving forward. The fast-paced economy kept me spinning like a top, darting around the globe in a whirlwind of work. Then one day, out of nowhere, a message popped up in my inbox. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things to you back then. I never should have divorced you." I read it and immediately knew it was from Jason. Looks like he had been reborn too. But those words stirred absolutely nothing in me. I dragged the message straight into the trash without a second thought. Then I closed my laptop and looked up, only to see a sky full of stars, shining as if they existed for me alone.